So I just watched Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers, another live-action hybrid reboot of an old franchise, coming from the House of Mouse themselves, Disney. And it was... good? How dare you be a good movie? Okay, so full disclosure, when I first heard about this movie, I had no intention of watching it. I think I verbally went ugh when I saw it, just because I genuinely believed it would be another soulless cash grab reboot. And for Chip and Dale of all franchises, like, what? But today it finally released, and I woke up and opened my social media to this. And I thought, hey, maybe it's not so bad, that's kind of funny, right? Disney poking fun at internet culture, and the concept of making cartoon characters actors in the real world is pretty great. Reviews were booming, relatively positively about it too. I thought, damn, maybe it isn't so bad. I mean, it has Borat in the fucking trailer. It's at least worth giving a try, right? So I swallowed my pride, thought screw it. I got some time to spare and chucked it on. And what did I think? This movie's really good, you guys. What the fuck? I'm just gonna say it now before I forget, this video will have light spoilers for this movie. I guess I'll only be spoiling certain jokes and background references, I suppose. Major story beats, probably not. But honestly, this movie is probably best when you go in blind, so you've been warned. Alright, so what makes Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers so good? I mean, it's not exactly the most beloved franchise in the world. In fact, the only place I knew Chip 'n Dale from was the Kingdom Hearts games, and that's not really, saying much.
And I met you in the summer.
But, I like to think I had an open mind, and I like Disney properties, so this should be pretty fun, right? And you know what? It was pretty good. If you're not a big fan of Disney and pop culture in general, this movie might not be for you. Because this is definitely a Space Jam type of crossover movie. There's clearly a lot of inspiration from Roger Rabbit. I mean, they even acknowledge it in the movie itself. But I don't think that's a bad thing. This is a modern version of Roger Rabbit, I suppose. That movie is considered a classic, and while I didn't really grow up with it, it didn't really hit as hard for me, but this movie kinda does. It's just filled to the brim with references and Easter eggs for you to dig around for. And normally I'd find that to be kind of an obnoxious thing, i.e. a majority of Space Jam 2. But this movie kinda just pulls it off.
I'll never erase what I saw from my brain! Is your problem now, dum-dum?
I mean, most of the jokes I was laughing at were just background images. Characters doing things in the background, posters, billboards, you name it. You can tell that the filmmakers really had a lot of fun just throwing out random ideas and seeing what stuck. The joke about Batman vs. E.T. the movie was one of my favorites, I think.
Forgive Bat.
Fine.
Yeah, right. Like that would happen.
One thing I will say about the comedy though is that, again, I think I mentioned earlier that it's probably best going in blind. A lot of the comedy is good because it kind of just catches you off guard. And I don't know how well that would work for a second or multiple viewings. But watching it one time, it was really quite fun. And honestly, it poked fun at Disney way more than I was expecting. I mean, this movie makes me question how much Disney is even aware about how much this movie is making fun at their expense. Because the whole villain's plan is centered around making reboots and knockoffs of Disney properties, which is just a direct metaphor for Disney themselves, making all these live-action reboots over and over again. Like Lion King, Aladdin, Cinderella. If there is a beloved franchise owned by Disney, you can guarantee they're trying to milk it for all they can. But again, the whole plot of this movie is kind of making fun of that idea, which I think is pretty bold, considering this is, a Disney reboot in itself, which I think is kind of genius, because before watching this, all I could think was, why would they choose to make a Chip 'n Dale reboot? But the whole plot is kind of centered around the fact that nobody would like that, which is kind of hilarious to me. So I think this movie's kind of ingenious in that way. Now, you could complain about something like the plot structure of this movie, how it's pretty cliche, but I kind of don't see a problem with that, considering how this movie is kind of putting jokes first and story second, I would say. The story is really just a vehicle to tell the jokes, and if you really start picking it apart, it isn't really that complex, which honestly I think is for the better. And again, the movie acknowledges this as well. In the third act turning point, when a villain is revealed and people betray each other, they make jokes about how obvious the reveal is. And yes, it kind of undercuts the moment, but it would definitely be worse if they just, ignored it and went through as if you were supposed to be surprised the whole time. The story in itself is not mind-blowing, and if you go into this movie looking for that, you'll come out disappointed. But if you're just looking in casually to have a good time and laugh at a couple jokes, I think this movie is really fun. I found myself laughing most at, again, just background images and random characters that would show up. The plot being centered around beloved characters going through a knockoff machine ensures that the movie can just pick and choose characters from pop culture wherever they want, despite if Disney even owns the IP or not, which again is just so ingenious. Like, they make references to characters in Nickelodeon, like Jimmy Neutron and the Paw Patrol, which is just amazing. The whole plot is kind of just built around giving the film as much creative freedom as they possibly could, just picking and choosing whatever they want out of pop culture in general. Never in my lifetime did I expect to see Randy Marsh, of all characters, in a Disney movie. How did they even get away with that? I mean, what the hell? I think one of the hardest times I laughed during the movie was during the Uncanny Valley sequence. I was really excited to see them continue and throw as many weird things at us as possible, and it was a really short sequence, and I kept hoping it would continue longer, but I got my fix, I think. But it's the kind of stuff like that only this movie could do. It's such a weird meta thing, and it's kind of a hard thing to describe, because it really is a modern version of Roger Rabbit, with characters going on a detective noir mystery style adventure, while also just paying homage to as many pop culture icons as possible. While a movie like Space Jam encourages you to look in the background to find different characters, this movie also does that, but it kind of doesn't take away from the story either. Like, I found looking for the jokes in the background was funny, but it wasn't sacrificing the story to do it. Whereas in something like Space Jam, when I'm watching the final scene of them playing basketball, I'm not even watching what's going on screen, I'm just looking in the background to see what weird, kooky characters are cheering them on. That's honestly more entertaining than whatever the hell's going on over here. But this movie isn't like that. It has background references and Easter eggs for you to look for, and you do get a couple laughs and you're encouraged to look for them, but it doesn't take away from everything else that's going on in the movie, like the story and the relationship between Chip and Dale. I'm honestly just really impressed. This movie is as good as it could have been. And I think going in with pretty low expectations made me like it even more, considering how surprised I was, so it might not be as enjoyable as going in blind like I did. And again, this movie has a ton of cliches. Probably my favorite one is when Dale saves Chip at the end by diving in front of the bullet. But of course he has an object that was established earlier that saves his life. And it just so happens to be the last Pog in his Pog collection. I really struggled to say that sentence without laughing.
What? No, I don't want to see your Pog collection.
It's just so ridiculous and absurdist, and you can't not enjoy it. So if you haven't seen it yet, go on Disney Plus, give it a try, and I'll rate it 8 out of 10. Hey, thanks for watching and sticking around to the end of the video. If you like what you see, maybe subscribe or even drop a like. I'll leave my Letterboxd account down in the description, so you can check it out. I'm constantly logging the movies I'm watching down there, including this one. And I leave reviews every now and then as well, so yeah, go check it out. Thank you. Goodbye.